afternoon, everybody. Welcome to 5 years of progress and the future of Main Street Childcare. I'm Jeff Andrews, President of Business of Childcare, joined today by Tricia Andrews, co-founder and our Director of Communication Sales, and probably putting up with me more than anything. Jeff Annis, Mayor of Mapleton, our first child care house, has joined us as a special guest. Excited to have him on board today. We're going to try to have some fun. This is really kind of a reflection on the 5 years of a lot of work, a lot of miles on the road. You'll note that in our little prize giveaway, the theme there around gasoline and the high price of gasoline, I guess, maybe more than anything today. Glad to see everybody joining us already. If you have a question or a thought or a comment, I encourage you to share that via the chat. We'll get started with, like I said, a walk through 5 years really of learning, building, and better outcomes. May 17th actually was the official day we turned on businessofchildcare.com, and in those early days we were celebrating Ice Cream Day and National Hamburger Day, along with a scattering of short and small stories, but really was a culmination of years prior to that. A lot of work, a lot of engagement with different organizations and entities working on childcare, and really seeing an opportunity to maybe do something different. And so today we're building really on what we started, celebrating, certainly sharing a little bit of what we've learned, and most excitingly maybe introducing what comes next. And we're really excited for the future of Business of Childcare as we look forward. But 2021, like I said, we started with a really simple mission that remains today: to guide childcare business owners in the communities they serve to better outcomes. Really quite simple. As I often say to audiences and our team share, we're about problem solving. No longer admiring the problem, but really moving from concern to action, to really making things happen. Maybe not perfect that first time around, maybe not exactly the way we envisioned it, but that's the reality. Is that it's a lot of hard work, surrounded by a lot of great individuals across the field. When we think about childcare, we think about a lot of our work in the context of communities and that overall realm, but we know the very childcare professionals that we started to serve, we center in the universe, right? Whether it's an in-home childcare provider, a professional working in a childcare center, an owner-operator, a faith community, a number of different opportunities and people and organizations and entities and approaches that we've worked with, and been fortunate really to be a part of those journeys to help address and begin moving towards better outcomes. So over those middle years and even most recently, a lot of communities tested, a lot of adaptations, a lot of work that started one direction, ended another, but lots of great outcomes that we're proud to be a part of as part of that journey. The first one that I want to highlight, and really the first framework, we do a lot of our work very intentionally. For those who have worked with us, you know this: process, intention, and a focus on that address for success is really important. In one of our first stories that we worked on in person and remote was Crawford County, Illinois, a great spot right in east central Illinois, might be the best way to say it, but one of the first examples of bringing the whole community together, rather than just relying on the child care field itself or government over here or business over here. We said, what if we all sat around the same table? I know, Mayor Annis, you've seen that approach play out at the beginning in Mapleton as well, but it was really an opportunity where we had large companies, the insurance agent, the field itself, operators in-home and otherwise, all talking collectively about what are we looking for as a win. And when we all get together and start to put those maybe things differently in words, we sometimes and oftentimes realize there's commonality in those outcomes. And when we think about Crawford County, they began first by creating that structure, a 501c3 dedicated just to the kids, just to early education. I remember Risa Shaner, the executive director of the Crawford County Development Association, saying, we want to create the model for what we want for our kids. And so in early 22, we began that work, and today they have a center that is open and doing great. It's full. It's got a waiting list. The rest of the broader ecosystem of childcare is thriving, more providers coming on, and ultimately they've created that concern into a coordinated local action, and something that we're really proud of to see as one of those outcomes. And it's an outcome that began really a foundation. We moved just a little south from there in the same timeline, and worked with Moultrie County, Illinois. Again, the economic development, the county board, others coming to the table, and our work with that team really played out successfully. They retained in a time when many were losing providers, all of their existing family providers. They increased their licensed slots, and ultimately had a 300% increase in the quality rating system. And for those of you who might not be familiar with that, it's just a standard of quality, an opportunity to ensure that all kids showing up at kindergarten have the same fundamental opportunities to get there, regardless, right, of the setting that they're in. And that work was really, I think, something that shed light on a bigger opportunity. When we started to think about communities, we started to think about community impacts. Tricia's been in many of those communities. We talk about wage realization. And we talk about it often from a community context, this idea that if childcare is not available and people otherwise would be able to take those jobs that are illustrated by the help wanted signs we see adorning factories and buildings across the country, they're not able to create the wage. And similarly, the work that we've done also is about ensuring that at the same time we create the opportunities for the community, we don't think the standard becomes providers sacrifice their own dreams and goals to accomplish that. So wage realization is really a two-sided coin, right? Opportunities for community to take advantage of those opportunities, but at the same time looking more intentionally at how do we make sure the wage for the very providers doing that work is one that is livable and allows them to pursue their dreams and goals, right? A big part of stronger communities over time. And so that led us to this idea that, well, maybe we needed to do a little bit more work organizing kind of a stage of readiness, right? Helping people first understand that impact. How many slots do we have open? And while that headline can be big, what does that mean from a dollars and cents perspective, right? What does that mean when wages aren't being realized? And I know Jeff will talk about this here in a little bit. What does that impact on Main Street? Right? What does that impact on housing investment in schools and everything else, right? There's a ripple effect, as we often talk about when it comes to childcare. So we did a lot of work in those early years, really helping communities just understand that impact. And we found that as people understood the impact, the natural inclination was, well, what do we do? And there's a lot of great ideas and opportunities out there, but there's always a unique combination for every community, right? Thinking about that box of parts, what's available, what do we have to work with, and where is we're trying to go. We did a lot of work and continue today building solution activation plans. Crawford County went through that, Moultrie County went through that, Mapleton went through that. A big step on really understanding the goalpost of sorts before we start running down the field. And as the years have carried on, more and more of those communities said, now can you help us activate that plan? And that's really work that is a big lift, right? Because we think about many of the folks coming around the table, we don't all have that same level of confidence and understanding of maybe what is important and what is necessary. And so by bringing together professionals and individuals, we're able to help put those pieces together. A big part of it, the work Tricia has done, is I mentioned before, is really getting the word out, right? It's one thing to have stories to tell, it's another to have stories be told, and hats off in our 5-year here to Tricia. Great work on really lifting up our messaging, lifting up that storytelling. We just recently did a session, Barb and I, on childcare stability, center stability, and the role communities can play. We're grateful to have a good friend, Robin Phillips, from Missouri Child Care Aware, and highlighting the work that they are doing in Missouri to connect employers and providers and opportunities for families under tri-share and dual share programs, right? So really lifting up even understanding and great work that's being done around the country has been a really great opportunity for us. And Tricia, through our channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you can find all sorts of stories and opportunities to learn what not just we're doing and the stories that we're getting to be a part of, but those of others as well. And I would say the biggest shift for us and the biggest opportunity, and it's opportunities like this that have brought Mayor Annis and us together and other community leaders, is really this fundamental shift to think about childcare as infrastructure. I was just in Marshall, Minnesota yesterday talking to an audience of workforce leaders, and I said the very roads that come to our factories, the power lines that bring the power, and the great water towers I love in all the communities I see that make sure all the water systems are going. If we don't have those, we don't have a factory, right? As we think about childcare more and more, we think about what's the role communities can play in investing in infrastructure for childcare, right? And I had a mayor recently say, "Well, Jeff, I can't be in the toddler room, Friday morning if so and so can't be there." And I said, "Mr. Mayor, all due respect, we don't want you to be either, right? This isn't about communities taking an operations role in childcare. This is really about communities taking a similar role to the one that they take often through all the other pieces that make our community work." And Mayor Annis, again, thanks for joining us for our 5-year journey. It feels like we've almost been on a similar journey in work in Mapleton. I know you're wrapping up a term here as mayor here, the term you're in at least in the moment.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, maybe share with our audience that idea of infrastructure, because I really think the opportunity to work with you in Mapleton and the EDA and others really helped solidify that thinking on our part that childcare is just as important as that road that makes up Main Street or all the other pieces. Talk about that from a community perspective, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Again, when you sit on city councils and be the mayor, and a lot of things just come down to numbers and math. And what we were doing just was not working as far as the math of, say, a center for our community anyway. And again, when we got down to it and we started figuring this out, and again, the infrastructure that we have to help make our community run, um, is really numbers. Again, we set aside, money for a fire truck and police cars, and we redo roads, and you talk about the water tower. I know we just had to approve more money to keep our water tower going. And again, I when I first became mayor, we talked about that three-legged stool. It was workforce, it was housing, and it was childcare. When you don't have one of those, it's really tough to continue to grow as a community. And again, the lack of childcare in our community was that missing leg on that stool. And so, and again, that's just a piece of infrastructure that you really need. And again, I think we've gotten council on board thinking that way. And again, not only just in childcare, but in all these different areas, whether it's our community center, um, whether it's our own buildings, our fire hall, our the municipal liquor store, any of those infrastructural things, we just need to continue to look at how we fund that. And again, in childcare, and again, when we looked at it, and again, going back, I don't know how many years that we went back together, looking at it, the numbers for us, the center just didn't quite pan out right. And again, you lay there in bed at night wondering, how can you make this work? What are we going to do? How can we raise this money? How can we, because again, childcare is essential for any community of any size. Um, and we were having people travel 60 miles one way just to drop Johnny off, and then turn around and pick up, or go to Mankato, a neighboring town, and then come back, or however it was working out. But again, and again, that now that becomes an asset to your community. Along with all the other assets you have, whether it's your school or whatever it might be, your parks. There's another one. Just making sure the playground equipment and all those assets that you have, this becomes a real asset to your community, because again, we will not have any businesses want to move to Mapleton if we don't have childcare. You can have the nicest school, you can have all those good things, you have all the housing you want, but again, because again, that's a very expensive part of the whole picture. And again, so we really have tried to look at it from that viewpoint. And I think once we started understanding it as infrastructure, as an essential part of being a community, then it just made life simpler for us to understand how we could tackle this. And again, yeah, our first one's just, as it's coming to a close and we're, getting the fences put up and getting everything all finalized and grass growing and all those fun things that are going to bring this to finality. But again, and when we get that done, the next meeting is going to be, okay, we need to start looking at the next one, right? We need to continue to look at it because again, I think a common theme across the country is, some of the existing daycares are starting to retire. And again, those days are probably might be in the rearview mirror to a degree as to the extent to which they are. But so
No,
looking at
definitely.
it infrastructurally.
And Mayor, appreciate you joining us to talk about that. I know this is a similar theme around the country. We were excited to see the groundbreaking finally for the early inspiration behind Child Care House, the Early Ed Flexplex, and the great team down in Yadkinville, North Carolina, finally breaking ground. I wanted to share this headline from the Yadkin Ripple yesterday. This was the idea of co-located multi-unit. They're going to have 6 units. We did really excited to do a lot of the foundational work, both in planning and thinking, as well as some of the legislative action that needed to take place in North Carolina to make that opportunity possible. But it's the same conversation. The EDA is there, the foundations are there, the business community is there, and the idea of another center in its traditional sense wasn't a workable solution. Especially when we look at the varied needs that we see more and more. I know in your area and other areas we have manufacturing, packing, and other plants
Mhm.
whose operations don't always align with that more traditional 7 a.m. to maybe 5 p.m. window we see. And so if we do more matchmaking, as we found in the example in Mapleton and others, we find maybe a better alignment to that outcome. And I think, Mayor Annis, it's certainly a story worth sharing, the big win for Mapleton, right? I think you look at the funders down on the bottom, you had state, national, local bank, local foundations, and others really come together. Brooke Garvey, I was just down there last week, saw her. She's full. Continuing to work with our business startup advisor, Barb Wagner, who joined us here for a little bit, doing a great work. It was a little sunnier and warmer that day, I think, Mariana's, but I know the state, the EDA, everybody involved in that project. Has that been a win as you've been able to tell that story of proactiveness around childcare, around other conversations?
Yeah, it's a huge win. In fact, I just got off the EDA meeting prior to this, and again, we were actually bragging a little bit and patting ourselves on the back about what a big win that was for us as a community. And again, it's just it's so nice that and again, this is something that any community can really do and they can get behind. And again, it really helps with that whole the budget. And again, that's always a big concern. And again, I always say a lot of this, we talk about this childcare is numbers. It's coming down to the math of things about how do we make it work. And this really is a great thing. Um,
Well, it's
that
been a
we
great
can.
experience and a great journey, and certainly
Mhm.
Mapleton and all of its partners, Sarah Moore, James Gordon, Jack Wheeler, all really just being great partners as we created the inaugural child care house, and what a great experience has been. And again, Mayor, thanks for joining us today. As I mentioned, I was just in Marshall yesterday. We're continuing that evolution of thinking as we wrapped up Mapleton. We found other opportunities to continue looking at this more broadly. Marshall, Minnesota, down in southwestern Minnesota, really looking at even a broader solution, putting together a true dedicated 501c3 with a supply oriented fund They're looking at building 4 child care houses on a capstone site that finishes up a 20-year investment and journey to create workforce housing in the area. They're putting some supports in for existing providers, and even thinking about work Barb's helping us lead on, helping those who are looking to transition out of care, not just send the 2-week notice and disappear, but maybe have a more orderly and intentional transition that creates opportunities to match somebody who's been doing it. It's got a great group of families with somebody who's looking to do it, and can maybe step in, maybe not fully fill those shoes, but at least create some continuity in care, and eliminate some of those heartbreak moments, crisis moments when naturally people just decide that it's time to go do something else. So we're really excited about where that work is going, and the things that are coming from that. And as I mentioned before, we spend, anybody that knows me, I rarely fly. I love to drive. And that's become even more exciting when the gas is up around $4.59 a gallon. And so Tricia said, what should we do that would be fun for a giveaway? And I said, well, maybe the most meaningful thing is a little bit of dollars towards the gas. So Tricia, I think you wrote everybody's names down, and we're going to do a drawing. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we're going to facilitate this?
Yeah, so this is actually going to be one of 2 drawings today that we're going to be doing for gas cards. $50 for each one. So I'm going to pull a name, and then I will email you the winners and ask you what would be a convenient gas station for you, and we can organize getting that together. So here we go.
Ba-ba-da-da-ba-bum.
Allie Keys.
Awesome. Allie, thanks for joining us. Thanks again for everybody joining us. It's interesting when you travel by road. Jeff, I know in your retirement hours, once in a while you're driving local sports teams around the country. You really get to see Main Street America. You really get to see what's off the interstate and off the interstate. You get to see the pride that people have in communities. You get to see the desire for communities to be prosperous. I know Mayor Seeley in Beersford, South Dakota, been on a 2-year journey to not only improve childcare, but improve other parts of Main Street and that local community. And it's been a real, I think, privilege. I would say Tricia's been on that ride many of those miles as well.
All of them. I've been
To
on
hear
all
those
of them.
stories. To hear those stories, to connect with those small business owners who can't find a worker, to connect with the operators, the providers who can barely cover the grocery bill, to talk with workforce leaders and others who are looking to fill those great manufacturing jobs, but there's no child care around. They're real stories. Matter of fact, I think I've fact about 250,000 miles of stories in the last 5 years, and it's something that when you spend enough time on the road and you spend enough time in the community, you really learn a lot about that. And one of the things that as we talk about new capacity and we talk about opportunities to build, it's also about sustainment. A lot of our headlines are around new and the flashy thing, but we've done a lot of work over the last 5 years to also help sustain and make durable those local programs that are near and dear to our hearts, right? The ones that have served up our kids and maybe are going to serve up our kids' kids someday. This was an example of the Langlad County Economic Development Corporation teaming up with the local task force to sponsor stabilization support through Business of Child Care for the 3 centers there in Langlad County. And it was a really interesting experience. I know Barb has done a lot of work on our stability and growth, working with school districts, working with all sorts of programs, but this was a private owner-operator. This was an employee-affiliated program and a faith-based program, and all had different outcomes, different missions, different desires. And what was really exciting is to work independently with all 3, but also be able to lift up maybe broader opportunities that weren't as visible to the community, to the Economic Development Corp. And I just had a chance to talk with Jenny Weicker, who is with Peace Lutheran, one of the participants, and she said, it's been great, Jeff. I've talked to the other 2 directors more than I ever had before, and we've been to several of the community meetings, and I think they're doing some sponsored training come up, right? But one of the benefits of this is that understanding of our communities, our understanding of not every model works everywhere, not every community has the same box of parts and resources and things to do, but when coming together, with a general focus of a better outcome, it's amazing what you can pull together. And it was a really fun experience for us to be a part of, and one that we were really, I think, happy to showcase as an outcome for all three. And those outcomes have been all over the country. We're really a small, nimble team. We've had folks along the way be a part of this journey, and all of that work, again, focused on that enduring mission, guiding childcare business owners and the communities they serve to better outcomes. We've done it in small towns, big towns, on behalf of foundations and regional partners, as well as individual operators. And you see our active efforts today continuing to spread around the country. There'll be actually a few more states that will be lighting up here soon, but it's really, I think, a solid representation of our ability, back to that core thing, to help problem solve, help communities think about childcare, help operators think about childcare, not just in the context of what's in front of us, but that ripple effect and what it means. And it's work that we're excited to be able to continue to do. But the biggest lessons we've learned, and we love to learn lessons along the way, sometimes hard ways, sometimes the easier way, is kind of a recurring theme, right? Is this idea that we have a lot of the parts and pieces in many of our communities, but we don't necessarily have it in a way that's coordinated, and often not at a local level. I talk to too many part-time EDAs and part-time folks who are just fractional roles in different communities, the bandwidth, even the time to try to take on and coordinate all of those in themselves can be very difficult. And we know that impact, that $172 billion headline's a big one, but when we break it down like we do and we localize that, every 10 slots of childcare is worth over $400,000 in wage realization, over $500,000 in resulting economic activity, right? That's when we start to really understand it. As I tell audiences, I've never seen $1 billion, never seen $1 million for that matter. But we all know what $300,000 to $500,000 to $600,000 means in communities like Mapleton, in communities like Beersford, in communities like Sylva, North Carolina. It means a lot. And it's an opportunity for us to also think about this big, complex child care challenge as one that doesn't maybe need to be so fragmented and so difficult to coordinate. And so that's where, as we look to the next however many years it is, the year ahead, certainly, as we enter year 6, is really an understanding, an acknowledgement, and an opportunity to lift up what we think is a real focus opportunity moving forward, and it's our new Main Street Child Care program. And it's really this idea that when we're coordinated in any sense of the word, that we have better outcomes. And more importantly, though, before we even think about the technicalities and the great things that we have built into this program, it's this understanding, as I shared yesterday, that Daisy has her floral shop, and Hank has his hardware store, and Tony has his toy store on Main Street. Why? Because they're right-sized opportunities. They're right-sized not only for the operator themselves, but they're right-sized for the needs of the community. And I don't want anybody to be confused. We're not suggesting we should start to open child cares directly on Main Street, but we think about it from the idea of operators and opportunity. What if we had more opportunities for Main Street child care sized opportunities, right? What if the only choice you had was either a center or doing it in your home, but rather somewhere just like Daisy goes to her floral shop each day, right? You open up all sorts of opportunities. You create opportunities that are small business size, that align with our chambers of commerce, align just frankly with what Mapleton needs. Mapleton doesn't need another center, as the mayor said himself, and the money math doesn't even work. But Burke Garvey, who, by the way, full within the first 2 months of opening, she's having a great time with her child care business. It's not in her home, though. She comes to work every day and leaves like everybody else does. And when you talk to her and you listen to her, even talk to, who was at NPR, Tricia, I think, and we've had several legislators and others there, she talks about it just as I've heard when I used to sit on chamber boards. It was an opportunity for her to start doing something she really wanted to do and was passionate about, just like Daisy in the floral shop, but didn't have a place to do it, didn't have the support to do it, and didn't have the resources to get it going. And so when you think about that idea, that's this idea, and it's about localizing the operating system, right? It doesn't suggest we replace anything. It's no different than the computers or phones or other devices we're all on. They're nothing better than a beautiful paperweight, maybe, without an operating system. And when we think about the opportunity for local communities that we hear over and over is we want to be a part of it, we just don't know what to do. Really proud of our team, our partners, and really our participating communities over the last 5 years for being the inspiration for what we're rolling out here in June 2026. So the whole idea is that we start to localize it. We have a host organization that's provided sponsorship and funding in similar ways that we already do. We create a supply side fund that helps support our actual operators and providers. And over the first year and for years following, we help a continuous process of organizing what exists, building what's needed, and helping sustain what works, right? And thinking about this at a generally county level, because we have a number of communities like Mapleton. Jeff, you're in Blue Earth County. As you mentioned, Mankato and Amboy and a bunch of communities that all by themselves don't necessarily have the resources, the wherewithal to take on these things, but as part of a broader operating system, have a much more coordinated way to be a part at the right approach and the right size and the right time to ensure that each of those smaller communities like Mapleton, like Amboy down the street, and others are just as sustainable in the future as we might think of that regional center like Mankato, North Mankato. So it becomes a really solid opportunity for us to think about what if that operating system existed? What might it look like? What we start to think about it looking like is creating a centralized place for everybody to come together, right? Those sponsors and problem solvers are actual providers and operators, our hosts and others. These are some mock-ups of what you'll see here as we go live in June. It's also about creating that marketplace that helps to limit and reduce some of the burdens that we hear every day from providers, right? If you think about family child care and providers, and that's where my work really started was with family child care, so probably a little near and dear to my heart, but it's a time factor, right? Outside of the narrative we've all heard about wages and earnings, most people fail to realize a family child care provider by definition has already got 55 hours of direct care time, right? And you add on time to prep food and clean up the food and clean the house and go to the grocery store an hour away, and you do all these things. At some point we're at 65 or 70 hours. And that's not just 1 week like we might all have once in a while. That's for every week that we provide care. And so the whole idea behind the operator side supports for Main Street child care programs is really to reduce that burden. We've got some great work underway to really create some of these turnkey deliverable approaches, everything from programming to food to all things in between that help reduce time, create better outcomes, and ultimately a better way of life for our operators, our providers who are in many cases opening their homes for 12 hours a day without ever being seen. And so it's an exciting opportunity there. Tricia, looks like we've hit another drawing moment, another gas card, $50.
Right.
How far will that get you these days? I suppose 10 gallons maybe? Somewhere in
Maybe,
there? Maybe.
possibly.
Jeff, how many miles does your car get? Do you get many miles on 10 gallons?
I get about 25 miles to the gallon, so it's not.
You make it to Duluth and back maybe, but that's about as far as you're going to get.
Maybe.
Tricia,
So
who's our winner?
second winner is, and I'm sorry if I butcher your last name. I really apologize. I'll learn it the time I meet you here. Courtney Kramer, you are the second lucky winner.
Courtney, thanks for joining us. We
Thanks,
appreciate that.
Courtney.
Good to have everybody here. So the Main Street program is a work in progress. It's been a work in progress. We just didn't know it over the last 5 years. All of the elements, all of the components, all of the inputs really is a direct result of real challenges, real problems, not just once or twice, but repeatedly, both for our communities and for our operators. And we're really excited about that. We're adding new team members here in the next month that you'll start to see join our team as our ability to support communities. The demand is continuing to grow. We're working hard to ensure we have additional resources to support those communities. As we think about the Main Street Child Care Program, we're working on launching 5 pilot programs. We've got several that are just about ready to finalize those details. If this is representative of what might be exciting to explore for your community, we still have, like I said, a few of those pilot opportunities open. We'll more broadly be opening up later this summer as interest and opportunities continue to grow. But certainly encourage you to reach out to learn more. Myself, Tricia, those on our team on our website, businessofchildcare.com. It's really just an excellent opportunity, I think, for folks to think about and to consider, what if we had that operating system, that human guided operating system that maybe replaces my need or our need to figure it all out or to coordinate all of the pieces, and what do you do? And as we started this conversation today, and again, appreciate everybody joining us, it's all about the stories. It's all about those that we're impacting. It's all about the actual work in the field. We spend a lot of time on the road. We spend a lot of time hearing those stories, hearing how the parts work sometimes and how they don't work. And all of that work on a regular basis is work that we use to keep thinking about what's the next framework that helps making this easier for our outcomes, right? Started with the whole community. It's moving to that Main Street child care idea. We couldn't be more excited for that opportunity to be a part of those journeys. And so with that, I want to wrap up our exciting 5-year celebration. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to encourage those who just want to have a starting conversation. We're probably about the friendliest people you'll meet. We love to have a chat. Even Mayor Annis and others join us sometimes, depending on the context, just to explore it. We're excited to keep kicking off new communities. I'll be in Marshall, Saline, Missouri next week, excuse me, as we start to build out some work in Missouri. And so we, again, couldn't be more thankful for those members of our team that have been along the journey, our vendors and partners who have made this 5-year journey possible. Really the community ambassadors like Mayor Annis and others who have lifted the message of their efforts for their community, right? Not for business of childcare, but for the better outcomes of childcare in general. And most importantly, as I always say, the center of the universe are actual providers and operators. Those who actually turn the lights on early, keep them on late, take those calls, guide more than just child development. They guide family development. They guide community development, because they are that intersecting point that we all interact with, whether we realize it or not. And that really was probably the beginning mission of our work, was how can we make sure those operators continue to be strong, continue to be durable, and continue to be able to pursue their own dreams and goals. And that's what it's all about. Couldn't be more grateful for the journey, grateful for you joining us today. Mayor Annis, again, thank you. Tricia, thank you. I know
Thank
Barbara's
you.
here. Mary is in the audience. She didn't come in on the panelist. She's been doing research and everything else over the last 5 years. Been grateful for that. And again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day and look ahead for Main Street Child Care.
Thanks, everybody.